Hi, and welcome to this live reading from The Monster That Ate My Mommy, a memoir by Jessica Aiken-Hall, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. I'm not your mommy, I'm the monster that ate your mommy. The words echoed through my head as my tiny body went limp with fear. I clung to my mother's side as we lay together on the mountain of blankets on her bed. In spite of my terror, I needed to save my mommy. I buried my head deep into the monster's belly as I talked to her. Mommy, please don't leave me. Mommy, I need you. Her muffled voice cried, Help me, help me. I burrowed deeper as I attempted to rescue her. Mommy, I'm here. I'll save you, Mommy. Crying between my pleas, I was determined to get her out. The more I yelled, the more the muffled voice shouted out for help. I could not free her. She was trapped deep inside the monster. I had failed her. Tears turned to sobs as I nuzzled my face into the monster's soft, round belly, my arm draped over her side. The muffled voice returned. Be a good girl, Jessie, and go to sleep. I wanted to please her. My eyes closed tight and my breathing slowed as I listened to my mom's heartbeat. Panic turned to exhaustion and sleep engulfed me. The room went silent as we napped together. I didn't know it then, but this was part of her plan. She didn't want to answer the inquisitive questions of her 3-year-old. She wanted to sleep and let the world go quiet while depression took her over. I don't remember much else about that time, only how the fear consumed me and led me down the path to be wary of others. It taught me no matter how much love I could give another person, it might never be enough to save him or her from themselves or make them love me back. A painful and difficult reality to face at 3 years of age. But it was only the first in my journey through mental illness, grief, and loss. I was born into chaos. The consistency of it made it comfortable. It made normal look crazy. For many years, I existed in a toxic environment mere inches from death. As a child, I didn't know any different. I assumed all parents plotted to kill their children. All mothers had their kids keep a lookout for their father while they had sex at a strange man's house. The chaos was so comfortable anything else looked frightening. I was scared to leave it. I guess that, in and of itself, explains a lot. As I got older, I began to notice the differences in other families. I didn't understand why my life was so different. To understand, I blamed it on luck. I concluded I was unlucky in every aspect of my being. In the back seat of our rusty Volkswagen Beetle, I pushed my face against the glass as we passed by houses through our rural Vermont town. I looked inside their windows and saw happy families sitting together. Mothers laughed and hugged their children. Families sat around dining room tables, smiling as they passed the mashed potatoes. And kids were running around having fun. I longed for what I saw. I imagined a family waiting for me to arrive to love me and welcome me with hugs and kisses. I didn't understand what I had done to be stuck in this life. A dark cloud always followed me, and I hated it. If something could go wrong, it did go wrong. Other people always appeared to be happy. I got angry and then sad as I watched everyone else have what I wanted. I was overcome with depression as I reflected how much effort it took to survive. It hurt even to breathe some days, all because nothing ever went the way I expected. Jovial occasions ended with gloom and misery, never what I had hoped for. The excitement built as I imagined how it could be. I envisioned how it was for people who always smiled and how it happened on TV. I ruminated about everything, anticipating that maybe this time was my turn for life to go as I planned. For once, it was going to be my turn to smile and be happy. Time after time, my turn never came. A jubilant event ended as the next dive into depression began. I struggled each day to find a reason to keep going. I wondered if I could ever make my mom love me. Negative thoughts took over my mind. There was no quiet in my head. Your own mother doesn't love you, so what makes you think anyone else will? These words haunted me and affected every decision I made. Would I ever find love? Would I ever be good enough? Would I ever learn to love myself? My closet is open, and my skeletons are ready to meet you. Chapter 2. A hot summer day in July, Wendy mowed the thick, long grass with her mother's black, rusty lawnmower. Flecks of metal dug into her palms as blisters formed. "Goddamn piece of shit!" she bellowed as she leaned into the handle and clutched her stomach. "I need to finish this fucking lawn before Mom gets home," she yelled as she gave it another push. The mower stalled, and Wendy began to cry. Wendy fell to her knees, her blue floral sundress ripped as she tried to get up. She hated that dress, but it was the only thing that still fit her. She was overdue with her second child. Great. Now I'll have to go naked until this kid decides to show up. Her swollen hands covered her chocolate brown eyes as she continued to sob. Her mother, Teresa, pulled into the driveway in her white Audi 5000. The key still in the ignition, she ran to Wendy. "What on earth are you doing? You're going to kill that baby." She extended her hand to help her daughter up. "I don't give a damn anymore. I'm so sick of this thing." "Get on into the house. I bought you some vanilla ice cream. Let's go cool off." As Wendy stood up, she grabbed her mom's hand as she screamed. "Ah, it's time to go." Teresa rushed her daughter to the hospital. It was a 20-minute drive. They arrived in 10. At the hospital, Wendy's contractions continued to intensify. She was admitted and waited for her midwife to come. The pain was excruciating, more pain than she experienced with her first child 6 years earlier. The labor lasted for hours into the next day. Wendy was exhausted, but it was time. I was coming. Wendy was fully dilated and ready to push. After I made my arrival, the midwife panicked when she looked at my mom's face. Wendy, come back to us. Don't you dare leave this beautiful baby girl without a mother," the midwife shouted as she hit my mom in the face with a wet washcloth. My birth was a traumatic experience for her. I was 11 pounds 6 ounces, and her blood pressure was dangerously low. She lost a lot of blood during the delivery. "We need a doctor in here stat," the midwife yelled as she watched the monitors continue to drop. My mother lost consciousness and was steps away from the light. She walked up to 2 large doors, her hand on the handle, ready to tug it open. "Wendy, honey, come back to us and meet your baby girl." My mom picked me up. She opened her eyes when she heard I was a girl. She spent my life telling me I killed her. However, if I had been a boy, she would have opened those doors and her life would have ended when mine began on July 3rd, 1981. She survived, but always held me responsible for taking her life, literally for a few seconds and figuratively for the rest of it. Living in such a small town, it wasn't long before Ralph found out about my birth. He arrived at the hospital with convenience store flowers and a teddy bear. Ralph brought the gifts as a peace offering. His blue eyes sparkled as he made his way up the elevator. He fixed his driving cap and straightened his button-down plaid top. "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm here to see my daughter. She was just born. Can you tell me what room her mother's in?" he asked with a beaming face. "What's your name, sir?" The nurse looked down her glasses at him, shifting her eyes to the note on the desk. "Ralph Hall. My lady's name is Wendy Aiken. We didn't make it to the altar just yet." He chuckled at his own joke. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm not able to give you that information." "What do you mean? You can't give me that information? That's my fucking daughter. You better fucking tell me, you motherfucker." "Sir." "Don't you sir me, you dumb cunt. Where the fuck is she? Where is that fucking whore?" "Sir." "It's just like that fucking whore to pull this shit." His voice continued to rise and spit flew with each word. "That's my fucking kid, and I'm not leaving until I get to see her." The nurse called the police to escort Ralph out of the hospital. He didn't get to meet me or see my mom. She heard him. She knew he was there. She didn't know what he was capable of doing. Only hours old, and I had experienced my first immersion in chaos. Teresa picked up the bundle of pink out of the plastic hospital bassinet and rocked me from side to side. Look how beautiful she is. She loved me from the moment she saw me. Finally, a chance to do it right, she whispered as she kissed my forehead. From that moment, I became hers and she became mine. She was always disappointed in her daughter. In Teresa's eyes, Wendy was a failure. As far as Teresa was concerned, my birth was the only thing Wendy had ever done right. Graham strapped my car seat into the back of her Audi and drove us home. Our apartment was in the basement of her house. The back wall was covered with shelves of books. Across from the bookshelves was Mom's queen-size mattress and box spring that sat on the cement floor with an old wooden crib beside it. Down the hall, past the bathroom and boxes, was my older half-brother's room. Peter was 6 years old and wasn't sure if he wanted his new job as big brother. Mom was overwhelmed with having an infant and a 6-year-old boy who was no longer an only child. Graham jumped in and took care of me in almost all aspects except for breastfeeding me, the one thing she couldn't do. One of my earliest memories is snuggling into Graham's lap, drinking milk from my bottle, gazing up into her blue eyes as she read to me. I was safe with Graham. She was my only constant source of love. Graham was 62 years old when I was born. She was divorced after 30 years of marriage when she learned her husband had been having an affair with his much younger secretary. The whole town knew what had happened, and she wasn't ready to be the center of any more gossip, so she invested her time in my mother, and later, us kids. Mom described herself as a free-loving hippie. She had long brown hair, always in a braid down her back. She wore denim overalls with tie-dyed shirts or no shirt at all. She had multiple sexual partners who often came to visit. Mom left me in my playpen as they smoked joints in the bathroom and drank beer in front of me. Martin was one of the visitors. He had long dark hair and a bushy beard and mustache to match. He wore ripped-up, faded denim jeans and a light blue button-down shirt exposing his hairy chest. He took a liking to me. He sat on the floor with me and repeated the words pizza and beer until I finally mimicked him. It became a family joke that those were my first words. My brother's dad, Jake, was still friends with Mom. He was a gentle soul and treated me like his own. He visited often and spent holidays with us. When Jake was around, it felt like we were a family. Mom was nicer and calmer in his presence. Peter lit up with excitement when his dad visited. Jake always gave us change to put it into our piggy banks. I carried my pink plastic pig as I crawled up the stairs and made my way to his lap, where he deposited a few coins into the bank. I giggled with excitement as I heard the coins clank together. Jake knew my dad and offered to give me his last name and be listed as my father on my birth certificate. Mom contemplated the idea but didn't take him up on the offer. Jake was ill. As time passed, he got sicker and needed dialysis. His treatments were 2 hours away, which meant we saw less and less of him. Just before I turned 3, Mom got the call. Jake had passed away. They had planned to make the 2-hour drive to the hospital the day before, but had to cancel due to a snowstorm. Jake asked to have all of his machines and tubes taken off so he wouldn't scare Peter for their visit. Jake decided to leave them off. How am I going to tell Peter? Mom asked Graham after she hung up the phone. I don't know. Graham paused as she thought. He's just a boy. Peter made his way up the stairs, a somber smile on his face. Peter, honey, come sit down, Mom said as she patted the kitchen chair between them. Dad's all better. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes. He came and saw me last night and told me he doesn't hurt anymore. Mom's and Graham's eyes locked together. What, honey? Mom managed to ask. Dad said goodbye and told me to be a good boy. He is with the angels now. I'm not sad. I know he's okay. Mom's eyes filled with tears as she hugged Peter. She stroked his dark brown hair as her tears hit the top of his head. It's okay, Mommy. He's better now.